Hey, what's up, everybody? Podcast time.
What's up?
Got the Joseph and the Clint with us today. I thought really cool conversation to just kind of have. And honestly, I really would love to turn it spiritual at some point in here. Just for those of you who don't know, both of you guys have adopted children.
Mm-hmm.
And the adoption process is one thing. You and I had a podcast on that. It's beautiful. Go back and watch some of the adoption process. I saw somebody else made I think it may have been on the Forrest Frank album or something. There's like a preaching part on it, and he talks very similar to what you say, where you're having to make the decisions about what you will accept and what you won't accept. And in that moment, he said, I understood the love of God on a whole new level. And so there's the beauty of adoption on that level of, God accepts all of our brokenness and all of our, deformities and all of our whatever injuries that we may have. God accepts it all, loves us, makes us, adopts us into his family to not only just become adopted children, but joint heirs with Christ. And so there's this beautiful connection that I don't think everybody can make with adopted kids. I think sometimes we view outsiders, not people who've gone through a process. Outsiders view adoption of how could I ever love a kid as much as I love my own.
Mm-hmm.
They view adoption as almost as I'm accepting a full-time, lifetime babysitter type role in somebody's life, and they can't comprehend. And maybe y'all weren't able to comprehend until you went through the process how you go from I'm accepting responsibility for this person's life to now I am their dad. I am that, and they are my children.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a beautiful concept. So let's talk with the practical stuff so that it makes sense in the spirit realm, okay? Mm-hmm. The practical stuff is Eden walks into your life. How old was Eden when she walked into your life?
She was 6.
6 years old, a foster child at that time? Or was she straight adoption from the beginning?
She was privately placed.
Privately placed, adoption from the beginning. So you knew this was a little girl you were giving your life to.
No, it was actually unique. We were licensed through the Church of God as foster parents. And so the Church of God contacted us and said, hey, we have a situation where a child is going to, the terminology sounds awful, but going to be rehomed. It didn't work out at our first location. Okay. And so they're connected to the denomination. And so they've called all of the denominations home for children's, and no one has a bed. And so you don't have a foster placement right now. Can she stay with you for a couple of weeks until we find her an adoptive placement? Wow. And that's where the journey began.
They 6 years old.
They actually had a conversation lined up with a family that was Zooming with her in our house, and it ended up just not working out. She actually spent some time, about 3 months or so, 3 to 6 months, at the home for children in a back and forth capacity during this process. But eventually, when she left, we knew, no, she's not leaving again. You know what I mean?
That's our kid.
That's our kid. Yeah.
So it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I talked with Tony Kimberly about this because they obviously have gone through the process as well. A lot of people in our life have gone through the process. That moment of how, like you said, if she leaves, she's never leaving again. That moment of you go pick up this little girl in China, and she's mine, and you're not going to pry her out of my hands because she's now mine. Like, did you, let's start there. Did you expect that?
I'll let you go first because you were a little more extreme. You went all the way to the other side.
we went to China twice, yeah.
Yeah.
What I expected was that I was going to get there, and with Johanna, she was our first.
Yeah.
I expected we're going to get over there. She's 8.5 months old. She's just going to jump right in and love us.
Right.
Nope.
She didn't.
Nope. And
the Great Wall of Johanna.
Yes, the great. Yeah. Both of my girls absolutely love to tell the story that both of them hated me.
Yeah.
Hated me. Now they tolorated CJ
For sure.
because she was the caregiver.
Yeah, she's the
She was
nurturing mother. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. I, on the other hand, was not even allowed to be in the room. Now, Johanna, by the end of the 2 weeks in China, she was like, we were buddies.
Yeah.
We were best friends. We were having a great time. But Izzy did not want to be around me for almost a year. She had been home for almost, and I mean, she didn't want to look at me.
So during that year,
Yeah.
like there was a season in Carson's life where she had colic and she would scream and cry. And I remember one time waking up. At that time I was working. I was running a milk route I was running a milk route and a paper route. And so Maddie, typically with Carson and Caleb, got up in the night with them. There was and because for the paper route, it was 7 days a week. It was no like, oh, you sleeping on Saturday or Sunday. It was 7 days a week, and we were planting the church at the same time. So I was a zombie. So anyways, I was sleeping. And I remember one day turning over at her, Carson screaming in the bassinet beside of the bed, and Maddie's eyes just looking at the ceiling. And I said, you okay? And she said, if you don't get this child right now, I'm going to do something stupid. And I said, I got her, no worries. And I took the baby and I went into the living room. So if that's her child could feel that way and feel this, I don't want you screaming, whatever, when Izzy's pushing you away, was there ever that maybe we made a wrong decision, or was this is my child?
No, for me, it was this is my child. You know, you said you wanted to get spiritual. Well, this is where I get a little spiritual, is that it's just like God pursuing me.
For sure.
You know, it's like I'm going after her until she loves me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to do everything in my power to make this little girl love me. Oh, do you want a pony? Okay. Do you want a Ferrari? Okay. Whatever it takes. You know what I mean? It's like we're going to make this happen one way or another. I'm going to love you so hard that.
Did you expect this?
No,
That's
not
so
at all.
wild,
Not
isn't
at all. And the inverse is true is as well in adoption as well, where especially with international adoption, where all the paperwork is done and all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and then you go get your kid.
Right.
You know, it's not like domestic adoption is a completely different ballgame.
Strange bird sometimes.
Yeah. So when all of it was done, and then we got her. So by that time we were fully invested, right? And but that first day that you get your child, it's brand new for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And there are families where it takes the parents a while before they feel love for the child.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they knew that they wanted to do this and this was important to them, and they get to that point.
Yeah.
And in fact, we had one our guide.
Where were we all living at the time? Nashville?
We were in Nashville. Yeah. Our guide, when we were in China getting Johanna, told us a story about when you get to China, you're there for 48 hours, and then you go to the hotel where they're going to give you your child. And we went to the hotel. They gave us Johanna, and then she spent the night with us. Then the next day, we went down to the government house and officially adopted her.
Nice.
Well, our guide told us that there was one family one time who had gone through the whole process, done everything, got the child that night,
Yikes.
and in the middle of the night, came to him and said, "We can't do it."
I get it, man.
And you know, on one hand, I get it. On the other hand, that angers me.
Oh,
like,
I get it. I
yeah.
get it. I get it. Outsiders looking in, apart from the love of Christ. I get that.
Yeah.
This is a huge responsibility. So you take Eden into your house. She leaves. You're like, this never happened again. That's our kid. Like,
Yeah,
did you expect? Let's start there. Did you expect that?
I think for me, and I'm trying to be focused because I process things out loud, and I realize I don't process stuff until moments like this. Our journey started with foster care. So for us, we knew we wanted kids. We had been trying to have kids. Yeah. Becca had difficulty having kids. And so we've been praying, and we felt like God promised us kids, and they hadn't come yet. And we had a lady in our church who found out she had a nephew only through foster care when he went to an emergency room situation. Next to kin found out a whole thing, and she gave this impassioned plea on a Sunday night prayer service and said, they're desperate for foster parents, and if you want to do foster care, then let me know. I can get you the paperwork. And Becca one day came up to me and said, we need to do this. And I said, I'm not doing that. She's like, why not? I said, baby, you want kids. I get it. Let's wait on the Lord. You know what happened when Abraham didn't wait on the Lord? Like, this isn't like a puppy. You know what I mean? You're getting a kid.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know we've never taken care of kids before. We can't take care of nobody else's kids. And I pushed it off. And then I went to Mitchell Toll preached at a camp meeting on a Sunday morning. We're talking about dreams and things that God had promised. And then, you know, what if the Lord was waiting on your promise for you to be obedient or something to that effect? And I heard the Spirit of the Lord speak to me in the altar. Me and Becca are holding hands on a Wednesday morning service or Tuesday morning service, because Wednesday was usually the ladies' day. And the Spirit of the Lord spoke and said, get the paperwork. So I looked at Rebecca and started weeping. I said, the Spirit of the Lord just spoke to me and said, get the paperwork. She said, I know, I've been waiting for about 6 months. and so we called the lady, ended up getting in touch with the Church of God, you know, whirlwind of stuff. This is something they had been thinking about. So we became the pioneer foster family for Church of God, South Carolina. So we get our first set of kids. I was at minister's lead pastor retreat, drove home quick, and they drop off a 3-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 12-year-old.
Oof.
And situation like, what do you I've never even, you know, I don't know if I've even babysitted before. And now I have 3 kids. And then for those of you who've ever dealt with foster care and DSS, and I'm no shots today to the people that do it, they're champions, but they basically forgot about these kids for a month. And so had no direct contact, nothing. They just left them at my house for a month. They had no clue, no response outside of a few text conversations. And I'll never forget the first time the little boy who became a partner grant called me dad.
Oof.
And when I heard that the first time, no longer was I a babysitter, I was a parent. And my methodology and my brain shifted. I can't just be a babysitter to give these kids what they need. They're my kids. I know foster care, the goal is for them to go home. I know that.
Yeah.
But for me, they're mine forever until they're not.
Yeah.
And then when they're not, we're just going to deal with the repercussions and adjust. So they were with us for 9 months. He was with me every day, every hospital visit, every moment.
What was his name?
Owen.
Owen.
And he they ended up going back home. And when he left, I was distraught.
Right.
Well, then we got the phone call about Eden 2 weeks later.
Oh.
And so then Eden comes from this traumatic situation in her little life, because she was born in West Africa, Sierra Leone. So she's come from West Africa, the China situation, to, you know, another part of the country, to now coming to South Carolina and has no clue of anything, you know, 6 years old. And I didn't want to like her. Yep. She was not Owen. I lost my son. You know what I mean? I'll watch her for a few weeks. You know what I mean? Until they find her adoptive parent.
Ooh.
And her and Becca connected immediately. And there was so there was this weird, like, to where you were saying I'm fighting for them. I was just like, that's cool. She don't have to like me. That's cool. I'm good. But I didn't realize that was my I was guarding myself.
Sure.
Because it already happened to me one time. It's not going to happen again.
I totally get it.
You know what I mean?
I told when Tony and Kimberly became foster parents, they're either, depending on how you see it, they're the worst or the best foster parents of all time. Okay?
Right.
They have fostered 2 kids and adopted them both.
Yeah, that's right. And retired.
Retired. Right.
That's why I can't be a foster parent. I'd have 74 kids.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't do
That's
it.
exactly what I told them whenever they started the process. They were like, come on, Maddie and Jamie, you got to do it. I said, listen, any kid that comes into my house, I know me. I'm going to fall in love. I am a all-in guy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to fall in love, and I'm going to make these kids part of our family, and then somebody's going to rip them out of my life, and then I'm going to feel like somebody died.
And I remember in Eden's process, sorry, there was a moment we took her to the home for children, and she cried when we pulled away. And I remember that tug of the Holy Spirit saying, I would have never left you like that. And I looked at Rebecca and I said, we're that little girl's family. That's my baby. And so we began that journey. And, you know, you realize her dad died when she was 6 months old. She never met him. He died in a car wreck. And then, you know, being rehomed, there's this nature of, well, the first family didn't want me, whatever the cause may be, whatever the mutual part of it. There's this, you know, who wants me? and then now I was willingly saying, okay, I did my justifiable duty, and I'm turning over to righteous authorities. Like they're going to take good care of her, and for her to know that first couple of Zoom calls, that family didn't work out, and it was I can't not do this because I'm trying to protect myself, and Becca was always all in, and so when we began that journey, it has been a unique process, because now that she picks all the time. I'm Dad's favorite,
No,
I'm Dad's favorite, all that kind of stuff. But it's so unique. Things that people don't even realize. I'm sure you can attest to this as well. They have to teach you this about females specifically because we're in ministry. We're taught to guard ourselves. She's my child, but naturally she's not my child. And so you'll find out through the process that Eden just turned 12. I mean, just turned 13. And so she's now in that teenage years of becoming a young lady. And you would find out that because she's not my biological child, she'll develop quicker than a child that's in your home because we have two different biologies, so to speak. And so my first reaction is to then distance myself.
Yeah.
It's a defense mechanism.
For sure.
Because I'm a very affectionate person. We're affectionate people. We hug and,
For sure.
kiss goodnight and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, no, she's a little woman. No, I gotta be careful. And the first thing they'll tell you is like, that's going to be your default reaction, but you cannot not love them.
Yeah.
You still use wisdom, but
Listen, it's my default reaction with my girls.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they turn into little women, and I'm, used to wrestle them around. Now I'm like, I don't know. So I get it.
Yeah.
I get that part of it. I want to ask two thoughts. I want to have two thoughts.
Okay.
Last time Clint and I talked about this conversation, we talked about how Izzy, I think it was her, that learned to cook really early.
Yes.
Was it Izzy?
Yes.
Or wouldn't go to bed without
food in her hand.
food in her hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you think about some of the stuff that you think they're too young to know or comprehend, that they do have some sort of remnants of around them, around in their minds, tucked away, whatever. Do you see remnants in Eden? We'll talk Eden specifically. Do you see remnants in her of things that she came out of that maybe you thought, why are you acting that way? But then all of a sudden you go, oh, it's probably because, you were left here, you were dropped off here. Do you still see some of that stuff in her little life?
She loves chicken. And I'm saying that almost to the point where watching her eat chicken is almost a joy for you. She'll eat it till she's cracking the bone, eating the marrow. Like, it's impressive what she can do to a plate of chicken wings. And one of the best places, not bone-in chicken, but one of the best chicken places we can have is Chick-fil-A. Like, God's chicken, we like it. And for 4 years, every time we went to Chick-fil-A, she would almost throw a fit. Like, I'm just gonna eat French fries. I'm just whatever. And I'm a little, at this point, 4 years in, that's my kid. Now we're raising them right. You know what I mean? Right. Like, you're gonna learn. You eat what's in front of you type thing. You know what I mean? And back in my day, you know what I mean? That whole thing. And we were sitting there one day, and I can't remember how me and Becca were talking about it, and it clicked. The last meal she had from the family that dropped her off, they stopped at Chick-fil-A. And ordered, this and this, whatever.
It's so wild.
Yeah, and it didn't register with me, and so every time I'm sitting here like, no, we're going to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
She was going through trauma every single time we pulled into a
Isn't
Chick-fil-A.
that so wild?
Are they going to drop me off?
We had the exact same thing happen with Izzy, and we didn't even think about it. Izzy had a lot of trauma with her heart surgeries and everything like that, and being in different homes and all that until we got her at 2.5 years old. And one of the things that you have to
Remind me, I want to do the Target story as well.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sure, yeah. But when when in international adoption in particular, because with domestic adoption you get to spend time with the child, it's a smoother transition. With international adoption, I'm so happy because I get my daughter.
Right.
For her, it's a kidnapping.
Right, you kidnapped her.
Yeah, it's a full-on kidnapping. It's another trauma in her life. Well, we basically went straight from there to the airport to fly to another city in China and get everything done. Well, once we got her over here and settled in and everything, it's all great. We're doing, everything's good. We have some other friends who had adopted from China. And one of the things that adoptive families like to do is they'll go meet everybody at the airport when somebody comes in, big signs and everything like that. So we go to the airport to meet up, and Izzy loses it.
Really?
Yeah.
Goes completely, and it took us a minute. We're like, what is going on with her? And all of a sudden we realized, oh my goodness, we just put her back in the trauma of this is where all the bad stuff happened, and you brought me right back here. Is it happening
wild,
again?
right?
Is that because she doesn't have the words or anything?
And she was how old whenever you? Because
we adopted her at 2.5.
2.5. Joanna was 8 months old.
8.5 months old. Yeah. But so she was probably about 3, and she doesn't have the cognitive ability to say, hey, this is an airport. It's
She just knows last time this happened, I was being kidnapped.
Yeah. This is not a good place. I do not want to be here. Get me out of here.
Wow.
It was and so we had to leave before our friends even got there. We're like, we're not putting her through
wild.
this. Yeah.
Eden have stuff that she's just like, this is my thing. This is I got a teddy bear that she's taken with her through the
She
years.
bites her nails. She bites her nails still to this day, and for whatever reason, it drives me insane. And I try to ride that balance of understand it's a comfort. She wants it home specifically, but in a lot of places, some sort of blanket, some sort of compression. She wants a hoodie, a jacket, literally a blanket. Like she literally has blankets that have hoods on them and ears and stuff that it's 100 degrees outside and she wants to walk around with a blanket, but it's some sort of safety. She literally sleeps with like 5 blankets on her bed.
Wow.
It's just like an oven. It's a comfort.
Tell about the first trip to Target.
Yeah, the first time Izzy went to Target, CJ was going and shopping, and she showed Izzy 2 dresses. And Izzy's 2.5 years old, right?
Yeah.
She shows Izzy 2 dresses, and she's trying to say which one do you want. And Izzy's looking at me. She's not paying any attention whatsoever. You know how kids are in Target.
For sure.
You walk into Target, and they're like, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that.
Not Izzy.
No, she couldn't have cared less.
Yeah.
And CJ said, okay, which one of these do you want? And Izzy's like confused, and she's like trying to figure out what she's saying, and finally CJ gets through to her that you can have one of these dresses. It's going to be your dress. And Izzy pointed at one, and so CJ put it in the basket, and then she was like, and then she pointed at the other one. And at that point, CJ realized she's never owned anything in her life.
Yeah.
And this was an important moment where this was going to be a bonding experience. And poor CJ walked out of there with an absolutely melted credit card because that girl got everything she wanted that day.
Let's talk about spiritual lessons you learned from adoption. I would say immediate spiritual lesson that I see outside in is that there's no difference between Zach and Izzy for you.
None.
They're your kids. And your will, if you split everything up evenly, every kid's going to get the exact same thing because they're your kids.
Absolutely, yeah. Legally and in all other ways.
Right. And Tony and Kimberly's life, same exact way. Eden, same exact way. So I think the thought process that sometimes we think when the word says that we're joint heirs with Christ, that means something other than, no. In his will, we get everything that Jesus gets. You know? Like we are set up to receive all of the glory and splendor and the beauty that is heaven one day.
Yeah.
And so I think that is beautiful watching that inside of your lives. Some sort of spiritual lesson you've learned from walking out the adoption process.
What is it? Galatians, when it's talking about whereby we receive the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. And you read that scripture, and it's in the context of, through the blood of Christ, we're adopted, we're into the family of God. And I always, when I read that scripture, I always hear the song Reckless Love, and you just hear that pursuit. And I think about the pursuit of even eating to where there are times that I don't even know if she still likes us as much as we like her. You know what I mean? You to where you feel like, man, you know.
My kids are 17, 19, 21. We still feel the same way.
Well,
I
but
don't know
you
if
know-
y'all like us as much as we like y'all.
Me and Becca are both the oldest kids, and so we have that oldest child syndrome of responsibility. And if Mama did that, then my God, you know. Whereas for her, you know, it's expected, and you can say, "Well, we did a good job. Then we spoiled her," you know. But now she's at the age where you want to see responsibility. You know, it's weird balance. But even in those moments of, does she even like us? Does she love us? She can go hole away in her room, and as long as you throw kibble out at the door, you know, I mean, you know, exaggerating, of course, but she would be fine. But I think about that scripture that, you know, there's that his love pursued me, and I'm called to pursue her. And so even in my and the times that I rejected him, the times that he was pursuing me, and he never stopped his
You
pursuit.
ever used the adoption process in a sermon series, like in a sermon?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I totally see. Like,
Yeah.
in my head, you could make a sermon series out of this. Like, there's so many avenues that you could go down of how the love of God pursues you, and the darkness that is so often we try to hide from Him. And as I am with my own kids, y'all are with your own kids. Like, man, there's no shadow He won't light up.
Yeah.
No mountain He won't climb up coming after you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do everything I can to get to my kids same way He's gonna do. And if I, as an earthly father, you know how to do those things for my kids, how much more so does the Heavenly Father know how to give us good gifts, and ultimately the Holy Spirit. So, anyways, spiritual concept.
For me, you know, there's a lot of trauma involved in adoption. There's, you know, the kids go through a lot, the kidnapping, every part of it, and they have reactions to those that are interesting. You know, like you see, both of my girls would scratch the back of their neck to the point where it would bleed.
Okay.
And it's a pretty common thing for adoptive children to do. There's something about it that's comforting to them, and they will do that as babies, you know. But it's one of those things that that we would try to stop it, you know, and I look at it kind of like, if that was me, and here I am harming myself, you know, because of the trauma that I've gone through. And God is looking at me going, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
You don't need to do, I've got you.
Mm-hmm.
This is a forever family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you are safe now. You don't have to harm yourself anymore. You don't have to live in that trauma anymore. All that's in the past. Yeah. Everything from here on out, man, there may be bumps in the road, but we good.
Love it.
You know.
Love it. All right. Now let's go down this path. I think I heard you say this stat one time. So if I misquote the stat, say it right, or say that's not my stat. I don't know where you got that from. And maybe it was a movie that came out about a pastor who challenged his whole church to adopt or to foster kids. But I heard the stat that if every church in America, one person in every church in America adopted or fostered a child, that the foster system would be empty.
Yeah, it come from Texas. Becca gave us that stat during November during Stand Sunday. Yeah.
So that is accurate.
Yeah.
So
there was a county in Texas. He gave a challenge to his church. Every family took on the challenge, and that county to this day is virtually DSS free.
Yeah.
The church takes care of all the kids.
So I know there's all of the struggles with DSS and all the things. And I know we as a Christian culture we are very pro-life. You know, I won't tell you how I vote, but I will say my dad would always tell me, you know, policy number one that you vote on is where they stand on abortion, because life was that important to my dad. And so pro-life is something that is the opposite side of, this is not political. So when I say opposite side of the fence, I don't mean like Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. I mean pro-life, pro-choice fence, okay? In pro-life conversations, many times pro-choice people will say things like, if that mama has a child, what are you willing to do?
Yeah.
To what are you going to do about it? You know,
Right.
like foster care is full, DSS is full. And I hear that. I don't know that I better be careful. DSS is watching, I'm sure. But I don't know that I agree with the concept, because knowing all of the garbage that is attached to some of the system.
Mhm.
If a lady in our church is having a child and is, hey, I need somebody to, how does that even work? Like, if a lady in our church is having a child and says, hey, I want to abort or give this child to someone, does it just automatically go to DSS first? Or is this lady able to say, I choose you to raise my child? How does this even work?
Yeah, you know, it all comes down to money. Eden was a private adoption, meaning that she was freely given, and when the parents signed over their rights, she was considered a ward of the state, meaning that no adult in her life owns the parental role in her life. The government does. And we were identified as the private placement, and so the average private adoption in that case is 5 to 20. It cost us about 5 to get it done. And I say that to say,
so they can't just sign it over to you.
they can, but then it still has to go through the courts.
Okay.
Yep. There is a process in the courts where,
Which always muddies stuff up.
Yeah.
Anytime you say the courts,
Yeah.
it always can muddy stuff
Yeah.
up.
I can give you, if I were going out of the country and I said, Pastor Jamie, I want you to take care of my kids while I'm gone. I want you to be able to take them to the doctor. I want you to be able to sign their school forms. I can sign over guardianship or custody. And I still retain my parental rights. I'm still their parent. And if I come home and say, Pastor Jamie, give my kids, legally you have to give them to me.
Which is what happens a lot during the DSS process is they sign over custody, they get put in homes, they walk through an adoption process, even get to the end, and parental rights are not been terminated or not been
Correct.
signed over, and then that parent steps back in and goes, no, I'm not. I just signed over my parental rights, not my actual termination of whatever it is.
Yeah. But if I said, listen, I want you to take my kids, we can come into an agreement, but eventually a lawyer has to be in the room. We have to have a court date to where in the eyes of the government, there's a transference from me to you.
And the price of that is you're paying for the lawyer, the court. That's what you're paying for.
Correct.
Not government officials,
You're paying
bureaucracy.
lawyers' fees.
You're paying lawyers' fees to get said kid. Lady in our church has a kid and says, and I'm saying this out loud because I'm working through this as well.
Yeah.
If somebody in our church is faced with abortion or somebody in our church stepping up and watching that baby, I'm telling you, somebody in this church would gladly step in and pay the fee and walk through this with you. And man, I don't want to put our church on the hook for something, but like our church would step in and help pay fees, whatever we got to do. Don't you dare feel like you are hopeless and like you are painted into a corner and you don't have a choice. I get there are people that get to that place, and I'm sorry that you ever got to that place to where you felt like you didn't have a choice. But if you are somebody who comes to our church and this is your family, you have a choice.
Yeah.
There's a choice that you get to make. So as you are watching this and you're like, man, how could I feel spiritual right now. I don't even know who I'm talking to. But like, how can I get to the place to where somebody else can love my children? You guys are prime examples of whoever's watching this that wants to have an abortion, that says nobody can love my children because dad ran away and I'm here as a single mom at this age. Whatever the situation may be, there's 2 daddies that are sitting here that are saying, I've been through this. I've walked through this. These are my kids.
Yeah.
This is not like a secondary kid. It's not like, these are these are my biological kids and these are my adopted kids. There's no division in the house. These are my kids.
Yeah.
Right? And so whoever's watching this that has gotten to the I don't even know why you're tuning in right now. I don't even know why you're watching this, but whoever it is that's watching this that has got to the place to where you feel hopeless, you are not hopeless, man. Please reach out to one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We will be happy to walk you through a process, walk you through a journey. Coastline there in Myrtle Beach, they're amazing. They'll be happy to walk you through a process, walk you through a journey. Let's
And on this note, for our church specifically,
please.
Becca in a foster care group has identified a lawyer here in Myrtle Beach that all they do is adoptions. And we have been fighting for 3 years to get our child, and for legality, we'll call her A adopted through foster care, through the state. I mean, it's free. We're just waiting on the process to play out.
Yep.
We contacted this lawyer's office, and now, God be willing, it'll be done in the next 45 to 60 days.
Praise the Lord.
And this is all they do. And so there are lawyers off. They love adoptions. Judges love adoptions. And so we have teams out there that are ready to do it.
Yeah, I don't know why I feel spiritual right now. I don't even know why we have this conversation until we got to this moment, and it was like, oh, I don't know who you are. I have no clue who you are that's sitting and why you tuned into this podcast today. And maybe this is months from now, years from now, and you're going back through seeing a podcast, titled "What to Do with My Kid." I don't know, like whatever Caleb titles is. I don't know why you're tuning in right now. Months from now, years from now, there is a choice. You have a choice in this. So don't think you're on an island by yourself. Don't think you've been painted into a corner and that is abortion is your only choice. It's not. You have a choice. And I promise you, if you reach out to us here at the church, we will figure out how to walk this out with you and make sure that baby has a future and a hope and a purpose. It has a future and a hope and a purpose. We'll make sure to do the best we can to give it to them. So, anyways, thank you guys for your time. Thank you for your hearts. Thank you for being willing to step in. And, man, y'all are amazing, man. I hope you may never get the accolades that you deserve, but I hope one day when you stand before the Lord that you realize the impact, the ripple effect of the impact that you made by pursuing. Super cool.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out.
Amen. Thank you.
Love y'all. Peace.
Peace.
Let's go.
Later.